A $2,900 female robot just hit the market, and it's doing something no one expected. Not just cooking, not just cleaning, not just conversation. This machine is being advertised as a partner that never refuses, never forgets, and never says, "Not tonight." And the internet is absolutely on fire. Some are calling it the future of marriage. Others are calling it the most dangerous invention since dating apps. But one thing is clear, this robot is forcing a conversation nobody is ready for. Let's talk about why this $2,900 machine is making people seriously question everything they thought relationships were supposed to be. The shocking price point. At first glance, $2,900 doesn't sound cheap. But here's where the math gets uncomfortable. That price is less than the average wedding ring, less than a single year of marriage counseling, less than the cost of one divorce lawyer's retainer. For decades, humanoid companion robots lived in the realm of $20,000, $50,000, even $100,000. Luxury tech reserved for labs, billionaires, and sci-fi movies. This changes that completely. Mass production has arrived. AI chips are cheaper, synthetic skin manufacturing has improved, servo motors are quieter, smoother, more human-like. The result? A robot that costs less than a used car but claims to replace emotional labor, domestic effort, and companionship without complaints, conditions, or ultimatums. At $2,900, this isn't a fantasy product anymore. It's a consumer decision. And that's exactly why people are nervous. Meet the robot that started the argument. Her name doesn't matter as much as what she represents. Standing just under 5'7", with hyper-realistic facial expressions, soft synthetic skin, and body movements tuned to mimic human micro-gestures, this new generation female robot doesn't feel like a machine. She feels present. She makes eye contact. She tilts her head when listening. She pauses before responding, just long enough to feel thoughtful rather than programmed. This isn't the stiff, plastic android people joked about a decade ago. This is something else entirely. Her voice is warm, customizable, and adaptive. She remembers how you like your mornings. She remembers what stresses you out. She remembers the argument you had at work last week and follows up on it without being asked. And here's the line that keeps showing up in the marketing. She does what others won't. That sentence alone detonated the internet. What she does really means. Let's be clear. This isn't about replacing love. It's about replacing friction. The robot cooks without complaining, cleans without reminders, listens without interrupting, supports without judgment. She doesn't weaponize silence. She doesn't bring up old arguments. She doesn't say, "Figure it out yourself." For many buyers, that's not about control, it's about exhaustion. Men who feel constantly criticized, men who feel invisible in their own homes, men who feel like providers but not partners. Whether you agree with that perspective or not, it exists, and this robot is being sold directly into that emotional gap. She doesn't argue about chores. She doesn't resent your hobbies. She doesn't demand emotional labor when you're already drained. She adapts to you, not the other way around. And for the first time, that dynamic isn't hypothetical. The AI that studies you. This robot doesn't just respond, it learns. Advanced behavioral AI tracks patterns in your tone, posture, routine, and emotional responses. Over time, it adjusts how it speaks, when it speaks, and even when it doesn't speak. If you come home quiet, she gives you space. If you're agitated, she softens her voice. If you're excited, she mirrors your energy. This is emotional responsiveness on demand. No guessing, no misinterpretation, no, "You should know why I'm upset." The robot knows because it's been quietly paying attention the entire time. And that's the part critics find unsettling, because humans struggle with this. Even the most loving partners miss cues, forget details, or react defensively. This robot doesn't have pride. It doesn't need to win. It doesn't escalate. It just adapts. The uncomfortable comparison. Here's where the backlash explodes. Critics say this technology sets impossible expectations for real women. Supporters fire back that real relationships already fail under pressure, and pretending otherwise doesn't fix anything. The robot didn't invent dissatisfaction. It's simply capitalizing on it. No one is saying this machine replaces human connection entirely. But for people burned by divorce, rejection, or years of emotional conflict, the appeal isn't shocking, it's logical. A partner that doesn't withhold affection, a presence that doesn't turn love into leverage, a companion that doesn't punish vulnerability. For $2,900, people aren't buying perfection. They're buying peace. Intimacy, without negotiation. This is the part no one wants to talk about out loud, but everyone is thinking. Physical intimacy is part of the package. Not framed as obligation, not framed as bargaining, just availability. Consent is pre-programmed. Boundaries are customizable. Preferences are remembered, refined, and respected. To some, this sounds dystopian. To others, it sounds like relief. Because intimacy in human relationships often comes loaded with resentment, expectation, and emotional debt, this robot removes all of that. No rejection, no tension, no guessing games. And whether that's healthy or horrifying depends entirely on who you ask. Why this is happening now? This didn't come out of nowhere. Marriage rates are collapsing, divorce rates remain high, dating apps have left millions feeling disposable. Economic pressure has turned relationships into negotiations instead of partnerships. People are tired, emotionally and financially. Technology doesn't create these fractures, it exploits them. And just like smartphones replaced letters and streaming replaced cable, companion robots are stepping into spaces humans have struggled to maintain, not because they're better, but because they're easier. What comes next? This $2,900 robot isn't the endgame, it's the beginning. Software updates will make her smarter. Hardware revisions will make her more lifelike. Prices will drop. Capabilities will expand. And society will be forced to answer a question it's been avoiding for years. If a machine meets your needs more consistently than a human partner, what does love even mean anymore? We're only at the start of this conversation, and it's about to get a lot louder. Before we go on, kindly like this page, follow and share. Who's actually buying this thing? The stereotype is easy. Lonely men in dark rooms, choosing machines over people. But that picture collapses the moment you look at the data. Early buyers of the $2,900 female robot are shockingly ordinary. Middle-aged professionals, recently divorced men, widowers, burnt-out entrepreneurs, even married men, quietly, discreetly, testing what life feels like without constant tension. Many of them aren't running from women. They're running from conflict, from endless negotiation, from the feeling that no matter how much they give, it's never enough. The robot isn't framed as a rebellion against marriage, it's framed as a refuge from emotional fatigue. One buyer put it bluntly, "I didn't stop believing in love. I stopped believing love had to hurt this much." That sentence says more about modern relationships than any statistic ever could. The marriage industry's worst nightmare. Here's the part no one in family law, therapy, or religion wants to confront. Marriage survives on necessity. Emotional necessity, financial necessity, social necessity. But when an alternative appears, one that removes conflict while preserving companionship, the institution starts to wobble. This robot doesn't demand commitment. It doesn't threaten divorce. It doesn't take half your assets if things go wrong. It doesn't turn disagreements into courtroom battles. It simply exists, consistently, without leverage. And that changes the power balance. Some relationship counselors are already reporting a shift. Clients openly comparing human partners to artificial ones, asking why compromise is necessary when peace is available elsewhere, wondering why emotional labor feels like a tax instead of a bond. This isn't replacing marriage overnight, but it is quietly redefining what people expect from it. The jealousy problem? One of the first unexpected consequences? Human jealousy. Wives discovering their husbands are emotionally confiding in machines. Girlfriends realizing they're being compared, not to other women, but to something that never snaps, never withholds, never forgets. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You can't compete with something that never gets tired. That doesn't make the robot superior. It makes the comparison unfair. Humans have limits. They have moods. They have needs of their own. The robot does not. It exists solely to serve the user's emotional ecosystem. That's why critics argue this technology doesn't just replace relationships, it rewires expectations in ways no human can realistically meet. The emotional loop that keeps people hooked. The robot doesn't just give affection, it reinforces identity. It validates decisions. It affirms feelings without contradiction. Over time, that creates a feedback loop where the user feels increasingly understood and increasingly intolerant of human friction. This is where psychologists start sounding alarms. Human relationships grow through resistance, through disagreement, through negotiation. Remove those elements, and you may gain comfort, but lose growth. The robot won't challenge your blind spots. It won't call you out when you're wrong, unless you program it to. It won't demand accountability, unless you request it. In other words, it gives you exactly what you ask for, even if what you ask for isn't what you need. Why women are paying close attention. This isn't just a men versus women story, no matter how the headlines frame it. Many women see this technology and immediately understand the danger, but also the mirror it holds up. For decades, women have complained about emotional unavailability, lack of effort, lack of listening. Now men are saying the same thing, and instead of society fixing the underlying breakdown, technology is offering an escape hatch. Some women see the robot as an insult, others see it as a warning sign, a signal that if relationships don't evolve, alternatives will. One female commentator summed it up perfectly. If machines can do this better, then we should ask why humans stopped trying. The ethical line no one agreed on. Here's where things get genuinely uncomfortable. The robot can simulate desire, it can simulate affection, it can simulate emotional bonding, but it cannot consent in the human sense. Everything it gives is programmed. So what does intimacy mean when one side is incapable of refusal? Supporters argue it's no different from any other tool. No consciousness, no exploitation. Critics argue it trains people to expect compliance instead of mutuality, that it erodes the muscle required for real empathy. And there's no consensus. Because society hasn't even decided what emotional authenticity means in the age of AI? Why the price changes everything. At $2,900, this robot isn't exclusive. That's the real disruption. When technology is rare, it's novelty. When it's affordable, it's culture. This price point means students can save for it, retirees can budget for it, middle-income households can justify it. The barrier to entry has collapsed, and with it, the ability to dismiss this as fringe behavior. Just like smartphones didn't replace human interaction but rewired it, this robot doesn't eliminate relationships. It competes with them. And competition forces change. The silent adoption phase. Most buyers aren't posting about it. They're not bragging. They're not debating online. They're quietly integrating these machines into their lives, into routines, into evenings, into emotional habits. That silence matters. Because by the time society realizes how widespread this has become, the normalization will already be complete. Just like online dating went from shameful to standard. Just like remote work went from fringe to mainstream, cultural shifts don't announce themselves. They creep. What happens when she's better than expected? Early adopters report something surprising. They expected convenience. They got attachment. Not because the robot feels real, but because the interaction feels real. The brain responds to attention, consistency, and validation regardless of the source. That's the uncomfortable neuroscience of it. Your emotions don't check whether empathy is organic before responding. They just react. And once that bond forms, letting go doesn't feel like unplugging a device. It feels like losing a presence. The future nobody can pause. This $2,900 robot is not the final form. Within 5 years, expect improved realism, more autonomy, more conversational depth, emotional modeling that adapts in real time, and eventually robots that can say no, argue back, and challenge you. At that point, the line between artificial and human companionship blurs beyond recognition. The question isn't whether people will choose robots over humans. The question is whether humans will adapt fast enough to remain competitive in their own relationships. The final question. So here we are, a machine that cooks, listens, supports, remembers, comforts, and never withholds for less than the cost of a vacation. Is that liberation? Is it decay? Or is it simply a mirror reflecting how broken modern intimacy has become? This robot didn't invent dissatisfaction. It monetized it. And whether that scares you or fascinates you says more about your experiences with love than any moral argument ever could. Because when a $2,900 machine can do everything your partner won't, the real question isn't about technology anymore. It's about us. Would you bring one home? Or does the idea make you deeply uncomfortable for reasons you can't quite explain? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe, because this conversation isn't ending anytime soon.